Before the scandals, before the shocking headlines, there was promise. Pure, undeniable promise. Ezra Miller entered Hollywood with an energy that felt different from everyone else. Their performances weren't safe. They were unpredictable, bold, and emotionally raw. Casting directors noticed it immediately. Ezra didn't just play characters. They became them, diving so deep into roles that audiences couldn't look away. Early roles built a reputation for intensity. Whether it was emotional drama or psychological thrillers, Ezra brought a strange magnetism to the screen. Fans described their presence as electric. You never knew what they would do next, but you knew it would be unforgettable. That unpredictability became their brand, and Hollywood loved it. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Big franchises arrived. Massive budgets. Global audiences. Suddenly, Ezra wasn't just an indie film talent. They were a blockbuster face. The kind studios invest millions in. The kind that headlines conventions, dominates fan discussions, and signs multi-film contracts. With fame came influence. Interviews, magazine covers, red carpets. Ezra's persona off-screen began blending with the mystique people saw on-screen. They spoke freely, often unpredictably, sometimes cryptically. Fans were fascinated. Critics were divided, but no one ignored them. Behind the success, though, pressure was building. Franchise stardom isn't just acting, it's expectation. Studios expect reliability, insurability, marketability. Every move matters when hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake. For most stars, this pressure creates discipline. For Ezra, it seemed to fuel something far more volatile. Stories began quietly at first, reports of erratic behavior, tense interactions, moments dismissed as misunderstandings or celebrity eccentricity. In Hollywood, unusual behavior is often overlooked, especially when profits are high. As long as films succeed, studios stay silent. Ezra fiercely, framing controversies as exaggerations or targeted attacks. The narrative remained intact, a misunderstood genius, too unique for the industry's rigid mold. But cracks were forming beneath the surface. Colleagues whispered about unpredictability on set. Public appearances grew stranger. Interviews sometimes veered off into unsettling territory. The line between artistic eccentricity and personal instability began to blur, and the media started paying closer attention. Still, nothing had exploded yet. Studios stayed committed. Marketing campaigns rolled on. Upcoming releases promised to cement Ezra as one of the defining stars of the era. From the outside, the trajectory still pointed upward. Bigger roles, deeper franchise integration, long-term contracts. But fame at that height is fragile. All it takes is one incident, one arrest, one viral moment, and the narrative flips overnight. And that moment was coming. Because while Hollywood saw a bankable star, reality was becoming harder to control. Personal struggles, legal issues, and public confrontations were no longer whispers. They were about to become global headlines. The rise had been fast, dazzling, and full of promise, which only made what happened next feel even more shocking. Because when the fall began, it didn't happen slowly. It happened all at once, and the world watched as the story transformed from rising star to a crash spiraling toward Ezra fiercely, framing controversies as exaggerations or targeted attacks. The narrative remained intact, a misunderstood genius, too unique for the industry's rigid mold. But cracks were forming beneath the surface. Colleagues whispered about unpredictability on set. Public appearances grew stranger. Interviews sometimes veered off into unsettling territory. The line between artistic eccentricity and personal instability began to blur, and the media started paying closer attention. Still, nothing had exploded yet. Studios stayed, stepping back, uneasy with what they were seeing. But the incidents didn't stop. Legal troubles expanded across different locations. Disorderly conduct allegations, harassment accusations, restraining orders. Suddenly, it wasn't one misunderstanding. It was a pattern forming in real time. Every week seemed to bring a new report, each one more serious, more complicated, more damaging to an already fragile public image. Studios grew nervous. Big-budget films depend on stability. Insurance companies assess risk. Marketing teams build campaigns around trust and relatability. And now, one of their major stars was becoming unpredictable in ways that threatened entire productions. Executives faced a dilemma: delay projects, recast roles, or hope the storm would pass. Behind the scenes, emergency meetings were happening. PR teams worked overtime trying to control the narrative. Statements were carefully worded. Silence was sometimes chosen instead of defense. The industry knows that speaking too soon can make things worse, but staying silent can also look like complicity. Meanwhile, the public scrutiny intensified. More personal allegations emerged, deeply concerning claims involving inappropriate relationships and manipulation. Families spoke out, court filings circulated. Online discourse turned darker, shifting from gossip to genuine concern about safety and accountability. For many observers, the conversation changed completely. This was no longer about a celebrity acting eccentric. It was about responsibility, mental health, and the dangers of unchecked fame colliding with personal instability. And yet, in the middle of the chaos, one looming question overshadowed everything. What would happen to the films? Hundreds of millions of dollars were already invested in upcoming releases. Entire cinematic timelines were connected to Ezra's roles. Canceling projects would mean catastrophic financial losses. Recasting would require reshoots costing fortunes. So, egal and behavioral controversies while tentpole films were awaiting release. Then came reports that sent shockwaves through both Hollywood and fan communities. Claims that Ezra was struggling with serious mental health issues. Discussions shifted again, this time toward treatment, accountability, and whether intervention had come too late. Public sympathy briefly resurfaced, but it was complicated, because alongside concern were still active legal cases, active accusations, and unresolved incidents. Support and criticism collided, creating a divided global audience, unsure whether they were witnessing a villain or someone unraveling under pressures no one had properly addressed. Through it all, the spotlight never dimmed. If anything, it burned brighter, harsher, more invasive, more unforgiving. Every move was tracked, every sighting reported, every silence analyzed. The narrative had fully transformed. No longer the story of a rising Hollywood force, but of a star trapped inside a storm of their own making. Legal battles on one side, studio pressure on the other, and a public image deteriorating faster than anyone could contain. And as the controversies stacked higher and higher, one reality became impossible to ignore. The industry wasn't just asking if Ezra could recover. They were asking whether the damage had already gone too far. Because when fame crashes this violently, the burn that follows can consume everything. By the time the headlines slowed down, the damage had already been done. What once looked like an unstoppable Hollywood ascent had turned into one of the industry's most public unravelings. The name Ezra Miller now carried two completely different legacies, one tied to bold performances and blockbuster fame, the other linked to controversy, legal battles, and instability that studios could no longer ignore. Behind closed doors, the conversation shifted from damage control to long-term consequences. Film executives had to conf. Every decision now carried financial and reputational stakes. Yet, shelving completed films wasn't simple. Years of production, visual effects, and global distribution deals were already locked in. Canceling releases would mean losses reaching hundreds of millions, so studios moved carefully, balancing public backlash against financial survival. When projects finally moved forward, the promotional strategy looked very different. Minimal press, controlled messaging. Focus on the film, not the actor. It was a rare Hollywood maneuver, attempting to separate the art from the controversy surrounding the artist. But audiences noticed the tension. Online discussions reignited. Some viewers refused to support any project involving Ezra. Others argued that entire casts and crews shouldn't suffer for one individual's actions. The debate became part of the film's narrative itself. Publicity shaped not by storylines, but by scandal. Meanwhile, reports emerged that Ezra had stepped back from the public eye to seek professional help. Statements referenced treatment, reflection, and a desire to stabilize their life. For the first time in months, the chaos paused, replaced by silence. And that silence felt heavy, because Hollywood is an industry built on visibility. When stars disappear, speculation fills the void. Was this the beginning of redemption, or simply the quiet fade of a career that burned too hot, too fast? Historically, comeback stories do exist. Celebrities have fallen, rebuilt, and returned stronger. But redemption in the modern era is far more complicated. Social media preserves every